Ahoy folks, and welcome back to Roadside Gaming, or me, Zug. So, we have had a request from one of our lovely supporters, Scuba, to do an updated version of the very old Surge Smite build. So, this is it. And the parameters we were given were to keep it Smite, with Venting Shriek, and using the Surge Force staff. Okay, so we've tried to do all that. So hopefully you enjoy this, Scuba. I really hope you do, mate. So let's start off. With the weapon, there are a few ways we can use this, but I'll give you the optimal way first and then show you the alternative. So first off is the Demios Mark IV Blaze Force Sword with Maniac and Unyielding. You'd probably want Maniac and Flak though in an ideal world. And blessings wise, I've gone with Deflector and Uncanny Strikes. Obviously, you'd want Deflector tier 4. And this is because it gives us a big chunk of survivability in Damnation and Auric levels. Because these little things here are going to be the death of us. Because they're disgusting and incredibly overtuned. So Deflector is going to allow us to basically Jedi our way through this and ignore projectiles while we block. And the Demios Force Sword, the reason I've chosen this is because this gives us a very nice way of dealing with heavy armor. It's not an instant one-shot, but it is pretty nifty. And as an alternative to this, we have a few that we can use. If you want to go for just sheer mobility and being able to dodge, you can use the Combat Blade. It's a very good choice. It's more of a complicated choice if you haven't used it before, but it gives you a massive amount of dodge, and it is one of the most powerful melee weapons in the game. Obviously not completely suited for the Psyker. It is more of a zealot and possibly veteran weapon, but just for pure survivability of being able to dodge and keep away from stuff, it can't be beat. And another option is also the Markabian Mark IV Dueling Sword. Very good weapon. The only downside to it is that we can't vent perils while we're using it, but other than that, this thing's an absolute beast. As you can see, it deals with armor like it's nothing. So, there are your three options. So, for the Dueling Sword, I've gone with Crit and Maniac. And for the Blessings, Shred and Uncanny Strikes. If for the perks you want to change that up, you could change that to Manic and Flak, or Flak and Carapace, depending on what you really want to kill with it. And for the Combat Blade, I've gone for Crit and Unyielding, just to help with some boss damage if we have to go into melee, and Blessings, Lacerate and Mercy Killer. Because we don't have any inherent ways to cause bleed, Lacerate is going to be what's doing that for us to get the best out of Mercy Killer. And of course, you can go for the Ilias, but you can basically build the Ilias the same as the Demios. They're just different flavors of Force Swords. So, let's take a look at the staff now. The staff is the No Manus Mark VI Surge Force Staff with Unyielding and Crit. That's to help us with monstrosity damage. And blessing wise, we're going with Warp Nexus and Warp Flurry. You gain between 5 to 20% crit chance based on current levels of peril, and Warp Flurry gives you minus 8.5% charge time on secondary charged attacks. On chained secondary attacks, stacks 3 times. Basically, it charges faster. And chained attacks just mean one after the other. It's a very powerful weapon. It's a very powerful staff. You don't really need to be able to aim with it, which is one of its big benefits. And it does just do a lot of damage. It's a very nice staff. I quite enjoy this one. And for the curios, I'm using something a little bit different here now. because I've been playing mostly Auric. So what I've gone for is a single toughness Curio with more toughness, combat ability regeneration, and damage resistance gunners. And keep in mind, damage resistant gunners doesn't just give you damage resist from the two, either the Dreg or the Scab gunners. It gives you resistance to shotgunners and Reapers. It's quite a broad damage reduction of this, so this is why damage resistance gunners is always a good choice. It might actually even give you resistance to something else as well, but I know it's like the heavy gunners, the shotgunners, the Reapers, and possibly something else that I'm forgetting. But yeah, that's why. And then we're going for a health cure here with 21% health with some more health added on, combat ability regen, and more damage resistance gunners. And for the final one, we are using +3 stamina because the Psyker has generally no goddamn stamina on him at all. If you want to play in those higher level difficulties, you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit of defense for stamina, as this is going to give you huge amounts of survivability in the way of dodge and block. And with this, I've tacked on 4% toughness, 4% combat ability regeneration, and 20% gunner resist. Now, if you really, really want to, what you can do is you can take off the combat ability regen and stick on damage resistant snipers. But I find the best way to resist snipers is to not get shot by them in the first place. They do telegraph what they're doing. It's just the odd time when you're cornered in a group and you've got one pointed at you, that's when you're going to be a bit stuck. But let's just hope you never get in that situation. Right, let's take a look at the build. As you can see, we're pretty much taking everything up the top. Coming down to Smite, we're taking both of the lower tiers of it. So we're taking Smite, Lightning Storm to increase the number of times your Smite jumps. And Enfeeble, enemies affected by your Smite take 10% increased base damage from all sources. I'm going to have a little talk about these though. Soul Stealer, replenish 7.5% toughness on Warp Attack Kill. Most of your stuff is going to be via Warp Attack, so this is just going to keep us bumped up with toughness. Perilous Combustion, killing elite or a special enemy, applies 3 stacks of Soul Blaze to nearby enemies, causing damage over time. Just adding tick damage to everything is just always good. Next up, we've got Quietude, replenish 5% toughness for each 10% of perils quelled. This is generally why I like to take the Demius or the Ilias, so you've got more ability to quell, but it's not a deal breaker. Take whatever melee weapon you want. And then we're taking Battle Meditation, a 10% chance to quell 10% peril on kill. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could take that out and put it into metal. It's totally up to you, to be honest. Those two can be interchangeable. Warp Expenditure, replenish 2.5% toughness for every 10% perils generated. Perfect Timing, 3% warp damage for 10 seconds on critical hit, stacks 5 times. That's why we're stacking so much crit on the gear as well. And then obviously we've just been through the smites. Next up is Wildfire. Sorry, I keep yawning. When an enemy dies while affected by your Soul Blaze, nearby enemies each gain up to 4 stacks of Soul Blaze. They cannot gain more stacks than the dying enemy had. Again, this is just adding dot damage throughout the fight. Psychedelics Aura, decrease ability cooldown for you and your allies in coherency by 5% on elite or special kill. And then we're going for Seer's Presence, 10% cooldown reduction on ability for you and your allies in coherency. We're grabbing Empathic Evasion, a critical hit makes you count as dodging against range attacks for 1 second. This is one of the most important nodes in this entire tree. People just seem to think this isn't worth it. It's incredibly worth it, trust me. It really, really is worth it. Your count as dodging ranged attacks, which basically means you go Matrix style for a while and gunners can't hurt you. And then we're going for one with the Warp, gain toughness damage reduction of between 10 to 33% based on your current perils. We're always going to be riding our perils between 79 and 89% at all times. Venting Shriek, then we're grabbing Becalming Eruption and into Creeping Flames. Again, this is going to help us chuck out some dot, and it's also going to allow us to ride the perils ridiculously close. And if we fail that, we just hit F and everything goes back to normal. But as you can see, this is not like the last build where we were taking Warp Siphon. We're actually taking Empowered Psionics. But before we get to that, we're grabbing this node here, and this one for some more crit. Coming down here for the health boost, and then grabbing Warp Rider. Deal up to 20% damage, increased as your peril increased. Toughness, and then Empowered Psionics. Kills have a 7.5% chance to empower your next blitz. As we're taking Smite, this gives us 200% damage on Smite and 50% faster spread between the enemies. This makes Smite incredibly powerful. And we're going to talk a little about it more and how to use it later, but it's incredibly powerful now. Then we're grabbing Overpowering Souls, guaranteed chance to gain Empowered Psionics on elite kills. So now it is guaranteed. And Charged Up, you can now hold up to 3 stacks of Empowered Psionics. So that's the tree. How does this work? Well, when you guys are charging through and running through and generally just, running and gunning, you'll pretty much be using your staff and your Venting Shriek as much as you can. But as soon as you get into some trouble, or it's a mixed horde, or it's a particularly difficult fight, Smite becomes your best friend. Now, don't be one of those people that does nothing but Smite, because it's not helpful. Okay? Smite is there to help your team. You are locking things in place, allowing your team a few precious seconds to neutralize whatever that threat is. Usually this is some sort of mixed horde with armor, specials, elites all mixed into it that aren't easily accessible by your team. So that is when it is your job to forego doing crazy amounts of damage, to then bring out Smite and lock everything down. But because we have Empowered Psionics, that Smite is now going to be doing 200% extra damage, so you're going to be helping the team whittle them down. And there's actually a few little tricks you can do with Smite. Obviously you want to charge it, let it rip. As you can see, everything ticks down quite quickly. As you see there, it got to 100 and it automatically stopped. That can be good. That can be a good thing because it doesn't let you perils yourself. But watch this again. If you break it before hitting 100, it doesn't just drop. You force push and stagger everything. So that is the trade-off. You can either go crazy and just keep going until it chucks you out, or you hold on as long as you can and force push and stagger. So remember that. As that force push and that stagger is actually incredibly helpful, especially if you've got zealots or Ogryn running anything that gets increased damage from staggered enemies, or if enemies are already staggered, you're doing them a massive favour by applying that impact and that stagger onto those mobs. But outside of mixed hordes, you're generally just going to be switching between ranged and melee.
Conspiracy abounds in the upper spires. To what end, I wonder?
As the Psyker is a hybrid class, you will be switching between ranged, melee, and your blitz basically all the time. It's one of the very fun things about the Psyker. You cannot just rely on one aspect of your build. You have to be able to know what to do at ranged, you have to know what to do in melee, and you have to know what to do in an insanely mixed horde. So if you have to pull back and help your team by locking everything down, that is what you have to do. But we do have 3 stacks of Empowered Psionics, which means we're going to be doing quite a lot of damage with that. I do like this build. It's a very good build. It is a very... Sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. It's a fun build. I really do enjoy it. It's one of the builds I use the most. You know, You could tweak some of this, I suppose, if you wanted to go for a little bit more damage, or if you wanted this or that, or this or that. But honestly, I like how this goes. As I said, you can change battle meditation out to metal, but we already are getting quite a lot of toughness regeneration and movement speed, so I would rather just the chance to quell, really. But there you have it, folks. And Scuba, dude, I hope this is what you're looking for, my friend. And if it was, please do like and subscribe. You already subscribed, but everyone else, if you do like it, please do like and subscribe. It really does help us out. And no doubt I'll be updating all of the other builds as we're going through. This is just the first one. So please enjoy. And until next time, take it easy. I'll see you later.